The final show of 2024. We welcome you in the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert with you for the next 2 hours as we close out 2024 and we welcome in 2025. We are going to look back at the year that was in sports here in Arizona. We are going to give out some New Year's resolutions for the three major professional sports organizations here in town. We have more to unpack from the Corbin Burnes signing, but we start with the football team here in town.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
It's a feeling all too familiar to us here in this town. The football season ends before the last week of the season. The E gets put next to the Cardinals' name in the standings earlier than week 18. Most of the time, earlier than week 17. Normally, one of the first few teams to be eliminated from playoff contention is the Arizona Cardinals, so it is not a feeling that we are unfamiliar with. Attempting to reason with the remainder of the season, attempting to figure out what silver linings could come through the remainder of the season. That is what we attempt to do here to open this show, because what do we need to see from this team on Sunday? Do we need to see anything from this team on Sunday when they finish out their disappointing 2024 campaign? And I don't care what the expectations were coming into the season. I am labeling this season as a disappointment. I am labeling this season as a failure. You go 1-5, potentially 1-6 to close out your season when the playoffs are right there in front of you. Yes, you get the label of disappointment. You get the label of failure. So now that we're here, and we were here on Saturday when they took on the Rams, but here we are with one game to go left in the season. Do we need to see anything from the Cardinals on Sunday? Does a win actually change anything about the way that we feel about this team? Does 2-5 since the bye feel better than 1-6? Does 8-9 feel better than 7-10? I'm not sure either result changes how we should feel about this season, about this team, about this collapse in the second half. The draft position doesn't change all that much because of the way it all orders out. They might be able to move up a couple of spots, but a loss doesn't jump them from 14 all the way up to 5. It's not that type of jump. You're talking 2 or 3 spots. They're going to be picking on probably on the outside of the top 10. With a chance to get another young player to build around. So you go into this game on Sunday. If Kyler Murray goes out there, throws for 300-plus yards, throws for 2 or more touchdowns, has a top-tier, S-tier Kyler Murray performance, is it going to change your opinion of Kyler Murray? It's not going to change my opinion of Kyler Murray for him to do this in a game that doesn't matter, not only for the Cardinals, but for their opponent as well. So, is there anything to take from this game on Sunday? Is there anything we need to see? Nothing, big picture-wise, about the 2025 Arizona Cardinals gets answered on Sunday. There is nothing that Marvin Harrison Jr. can do to change that it is a disappointing rookie campaign for the wide receiver. There's nothing Kyler Murray can do to shake off the conversation that we are going to have all offseason long for what feels like the 4th offseason of his, you can't even call it young, career anymore. It's not the first time we will have had that conversation, not the second time, not the third time. How many offseasons have we gone into asking, is Kyler Murray the future of the Arizona Cardinals at quarterback? That conversation doesn't change with the way this team plays on Sunday. Trey McBride, he's a stud. I don't need to see anything from him on Sunday. Budda Baker, here long-term under contract. James Conner, extension. There is nothing of value to gain from this game on Sunday. There is no burning big-picture question that this team can answer on Sunday. And that should show you the crossroads that this franchise is going to find themselves in this offseason. There are other teams across the league where these final games of the season, where it hasn't mattered, where they have been eliminated, have meant something. New England, it means something that Drake May is playing. It means something that Anthony Richardson is getting reps in Indy, even though they were eliminated this past week. It means something to those teams. What can the Cardinals gain from this game? What could they have realistically gained from beating the Rams last Saturday? I'll tell you what they could have gotten from it. They could have avoided perpetuating a long-standing criticism of Kyler Murray and his underperformance against the NFC West. You could have at least, for a week or two, pushed that to the side. His record would have come back like a bad pimple next season when they were playing meaningful NFC West games, but at least for a brief moment, we could have walked away from that. The Cardinals find themselves this week in one of the worst places that you can be. Eliminated, nothing to play for, the game doesn't mean anything, and there really isn't anything to take away from it. So gladly, this season is going to end for this team, so that we can have and we can see the action that this team is going to make or take in the offseason via free agency, trades, draft, you name it, to improve this roster, to make sure a second-half collapse like this doesn't happen again. Because if they do run it back, if they do make the decision to keep Drew Petzing, to stay with Kyler Murray, and run this thing back and just add to the roster, you bet the hot seat's going to be hot for everybody involved. There is no more wiggle room. You will need to show it. 2024, the book's closed. There are no pages left to be written. There's no ending to this story. It ended when this team was eliminated from the playoffs, because there is nothing that this team can do on Sunday that is going to change the already baked-in narratives around this team. No Kyler Murray performance is going to change his future. If it's a positive performance, it's not going to change our outlook. If it's a negative performance, it's only going to further the take that I had yesterday when we made a declaration here on this show, done with Kyler Murray. Just like we were done with the Phoenix Suns 2 weeks ago, done with Kyler Murray as the franchise quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. There is nothing he can do on Sunday that is going to change my mind. What would change my mind is next season when it matters, when the lights are the brightest, when the stage is the biggest, that this team comes through and doesn't have a 1-5 or 2-5, 1-6 finish to the season. That's how you change a narrative, not a meaningless game on Sunday to end the season. By the way, with the 49ers losing last night, here's what else this poor season for the Cardinals and not finishing the job and making it worth this good start. 6-4, great start, fantastic season, potentially playing your way into a playoff game, home playoff game, division championship, all of that, and you let it go to waste. And what is your parting gift if this was a game show? What is your prize for that, for now finishing third instead of finishing the job? Well, because you finished third, because the 49ers lost last night, you are locked in to finishing third place in the NFC West. Here are the opponents that you now draw on your schedule outside of all of those NFC West teams. Here are the other teams that you draw next season. How about the Packers at home? How'd that go for you this year in Lambeau? Oh, you get the Bengals on the road in Cincy. They're playing well down the stretch. You'd expect them to be much improved next year. And then a healthy Dallas Cowboys team on the road. If you would have finished in last, again, this team should have made the playoffs. They were good enough. They were in a position to make the playoffs. They didn't. But now that they finished in this middle ground of third place, and the 49ers finished fourth, here's who the 49ers get because they finished fourth. Home game against the Bears, at the Browns, at the Giants. Which schedule would you rather have outside of the NFC West? You'd rather get what the 49ers got. So not only did you fail, not only did you disappoint in the second half of the season, same old Cardinals is the tagline that you can throw out about the way this team played in the second half and crumbled under the pressure, under the magnitude of the moment. Not only did that happen, but you finished in the middle of the NFC West. Your reward is a tougher schedule next season in a make-it-or-break-it year for a lot of parties. That's where the Cardinals find themselves here with one game to go. That's where this franchise sits as 2024 comes to a close, as we are going to turn the calendar to 2025. Maybe if we wanted to be positive here for a second and say, is there anything to gain? That game's going to take place at the start of 2025. How about you start 2025 with a victory? How about that? That's not going to be the official New Year's resolution here for the team. We'll get to that a little bit later on here in the show. But maybe you just give your fan base something positive to start 2025, and it's a launching pad. Maybe you're supposed to be optimistic at the end of the year, right? You're supposed to out with the bad, In with the good, out with the old, in with the new. That's supposed to be the mantra of 2020, or the end of the year, 2024 into 2025. When New Year's rolls around, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Supposed to get rid of everything bad that happened, wash your hands of it, turn the page, new story, new chapter. That's what the Cardinals are hoping to do next year. Because this year, and we're going to recap all of these teams here a little bit later on in the show, disappointing, failure, crumbled are words that I would use to describe what we saw from the Arizona Cardinals this season, specifically after the bye week. So no, there's nothing I need to see from this team on Sunday. And I know there's nothing that you need to see from this team on Sunday. What you need to see, just like we all need to see it, is what this roster is going to look like in 2025. What additions are going to be made to fill up the holes on this team that permeated throughout the second half of the season. You have to patch the holes in the wall. That's what we're waiting for. That's what we need to see. Not a win or a loss on Sunday. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the conversation here today on the program. A lot to get to on the other side. Corbin Burnes in. Somebody else is going out the door. So who will it be? A conversation about Zach Gallen, Jordan Montgomery, Ryan Nelson. Next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. The move that is still reverberating throughout the baseball world, the Diamondbacks signing Corbin Burnes to their largest contract in franchise history, 6 years, $210 million, comes with some ramifications, some roster fallout. Somebody's going to be left without a seat at the table. That is the Diamondbacks starting rotation in 2025. We know Corbin Burnes is going to be at the top. We know Merrill Kelly is going to be at the top. I'm still on the fence of whether or not Zach Gallen is going to be at the top of that rotation. We will get into that here in a second. Brandon Pfaadt's going to be there. This team, Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be there. This team, arguably, is going to go into 2025 with one of the best rotations in all of baseball. They are going to be a topic of conversation. They, right now, as we sit, have the depth. They have the top-end talent. They have an ace. Corbin Burnes is an ace. Zach Gallen, I think there's a ongoing debate, ace or not an ace. I'm in the ace camp. I think he's awesome, but he does have his moments. his stretches where he doesn't look like that ace, Corbin Burnes is a bona fide ace. Ace. Left Milwaukee, went to Baltimore, new team, new division, new opponents, dominated. Absolutely dominated the American League in a one-year stint with the Baltimore Orioles. He still is in his prime. He still is in his peak. He is the top free agent available this offseason. The Diamondbacks landed him. This isn't signing Zach Greinke when they signed Zach Greinke. Corbin Burnes is more at his peak than Zach Greinke was when Greinke signed with the Diamondbacks. This is not signing Eduardo Rodriguez, a veteran starter at the back half of his career, to be a dependable veteran back end of the rotation piece. This is an ace. This is a Cy Young candidate. This is a guy that is going to be mentioned with Zach Wheeler, with Aaron Nola, with Shohei Ohtani, with Yamamoto, with the elites of the elites in the National League. Corbin Burnes is going to have a seat at that table. That's how good he is. So be excited about his presence. We said that yesterday. Puff your chest out a little bit this week. But there is some fallout to this. Somebody's not going to be on this team next season. One member that is currently a part of this rotation or this group of starters is going out the door. And there are three candidates that I think jump off the page as potential guys to get moved before we get to pitchers and catchers reporting to start the new year. It's Zach Gallen, it's Jordan Montgomery, and it's Ryan Nelson. And with all three of those guys comes a unique conversation. They each present their own set of pros and cons as to who makes the most sense to go out the door. And by the time after I lay out all the cases here for these guys, I will tell you who I think the Diamondbacks would be wise to move on from. We'll start with Zach Gallen. He's the best pitcher of the three guys that could be moved. He's the guy that would impact 2025 the most. You are taking your number 2 starter out of the rotation. You are saying we are moving our number 2 starter. Again, I just said the Diamondbacks are going to be in the conversation, have one of the best rotations in baseball, and part of that is Zach Gallen. So removing him from this equation forces you to take a small step backwards. But we know he is a free agent next year. We know that you just paid Corbin Burnes $210 million. I know $60 million of it is deferred. I know there's an opt-out after 2 seasons. I know there's no guarantee that he is going to be on this team beyond 2026, but he's going to be on the team in 2026, and it feels unlikely that you're going to be able to carry the burden of a Corbin Burnes deal and a Zach Gallen deal. Doesn't feel very likely. So a guy that's probably going to see himself out one way or the other at the end of 2025. You can make the case that Zach Gallen would bring back the best return in a trade, and he also would shed the most money. His arbitration estimate for this year is $14 million. That's how much you would shed if you moved him in a deal. So there are the pros and cons for Zach Gallen. Let's do Jordan Montgomery next. This is the easiest guy to move because he doesn't cost you a whole lot in 2025. I think if Jordan Montgomery's on this team, he's probably not a member of the rotation in 2025. He is a long man, swing man, out of the bullpen opener kind of thing. That's the role that I would put him in 2025. You weren't counting on him to be in an impactful role before you signed Corbin Burnes. You've now added Corbin Burnes, moving him further down the depth chart. Now you have to eat the money. You have to probably eat half of the contract. You still get salary relief. He's owed $22.5 million. Let's say you paid 12 of it. That frees up $10 million. That brings you closer to 2024 numbers in terms of what your payroll is. You are not going to get anything back in return for Jordan Montgomery. So you got to eat at least half the deal more than likely. You're not going to get a whole lot in return for him, but he's the easiest guy to move, and he does the least to rock the boat for your 2025 outlook. And then there's Nelson. This is the player that probably has the most upside under team control beyond this season. Doesn't have the free agency cloud hanging over him the way Gallen is. Isn't a veteran who underperformed like Montgomery is. He would bring back probably the most haul, young, controllable starting pitching. It's not going to be the Garrett Crochet deal, but you're going to get something of value back for him. Doesn't cost a lot, under control, young, checks all the boxes for what teams would trip over each other to go out and acquire via a trade. Nelson's the guy that you probably would want around here if Merrill Kelly leaves in free agency at the end of the year. If Zach Gallen leaves in free agency at the end of the year. When this Eduardo Rodriguez deal doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't pan out, but it expires, right? He's entering year 2 of a 4-year deal. You want Nelson to be here when that deal's over. Corbin Burnes, what if he opts out in 2 years? You want to have guys in-house. So he is the safety valve. He is that safety net. You would hate to trade Nelson and then this offseason watch Gallen and Kelly both walk and lose 3 guys of your rotation for 2025 or 2026, excuse me. So there are pros and cons to all 3 of these names. Longtime listeners of this program know where I stand on trading or not trading Zach Gallen. Longtime listeners of this program know that I have been in favor of trading Zach Gallen, that I think you need to get in front of this. You need to get something for him before he just walks away in free agency. You add Corbin Burnes, I think that opens the door for me to change my opinion a little bit. You add a bona fide ace to your team, you signal to me maybe a different approach than I was expecting you to take this offseason. I think that allows me the opportunity to change my mind. You've convinced me. So I'm going to amend my Zach Gallen position just a little bit. Because of these 3 pitchers, the person that I would be blowing up other general managers' phones over, and I would pay as much of this contract as possible, take Jordan Montgomery off my hands. I'll pay $15 million of the deal. Whatever I can do to remove that logjam. But I'm not trading Ryan Nelson. That's the one non-negotiable here. I am not moving a young, under control, cost-controlled starting pitcher who can help me navigate whatever chaos next offseason is going to bring. Again, when you are a general manager of a sports organization, you have to look beyond just the season you are playing in. It is Mike Hazen's responsibility to look beyond 2025. He has to look at 2026. And guess what? We are speeding down the highway towards a 2026 where Zach Gallen isn't on this team, where Merrill Kelly isn't on this team, and you are 1 season away from Corbin Burnes opting out of his deal. You need to have in-house options. You need Brandon Pfaadt. You need Ryan Nelson. You need those guys in the building as those safety nets. So Nelson, not happening. Unless you blow me away with a Garrett Crochet level return, and that's not happening, I'm good. I'm not trading Nelson. Zach Gallen, we are pivoting our position a little bit. We're going to see how the first half of the season plays out. We're going to see where this Diamondbacks team is when the All-Star break rolls around, when we get to Memorial Day, right? Memorial Day is the date that everybody kind of circles on the calendar. We kind of know what a team is by Memorial Day in baseball. Okay, where are you at on Memorial Day? Where are you at the All-Star break? Where are you at around the trade deadline? If you're in it, if this bet on run prevention in the National League West pays off and you're in the thick of a division race, you've got a hold on a wild card spot, then we're going to see this thing through with Zach Gallen. But if you're not, if injuries pile up or you get an underperformance from your offense, but Zach Gallen's having a great season, yeah, we're going to pull that ripcord and we're going to move him at the deadline. So of these 3, it's Montgomery, Gallen, Nelson for me. That's the order that I would move these guys right now before spring training begins. That's the order. Montgomery, thanks but no thanks. I don't need you on this team anymore. You were not a factor in this rotation before signing Corbin Burnes. Now that Burnes is here, it is very easy for me to help you pack your bags, pay your flight, pay for the Uber, pay for the apartment in the next town, and say, see you later. It's the easiest move. Yes, it requires a lot. You're not getting a ton in return, and you're going to have to eat a lot of the money. That's the cost of doing business. That is the cost of that mistake. But you already showed a willingness to take on even more money than anybody thought you were going to take with this Corbin Burnes deal. Even with the deferrals, even with the way it is structured, it is still the biggest contract this team has paid out. It is still going to cost them $20 million this season for Corbin Burnes. Their payroll is going to be the highest it has ever been. 2025 is going to see the Diamondbacks have their highest payroll in franchise history. You're already all in. The chips are all in the middle. So why wouldn't you say, you know what? I've got to pay you the 22 and a half either way. I'll pay you 15 to go away and I'll free up $7 million. Or I'll pay 12 of it. And you just see what a team is willing to take on. There's not a lot of starters left in free agency. Jack Flaherty's the big name still out there. Everybody's waiting on Roki Sasaki. That looks like it's going to go right up to that 123 deadline. And oh, by the way, Diamondbacks might still be in the mix there as well. So the order for me of who's outgoing for the Diamondbacks, because somebody's got to go. Not enough seats at the table. Montgomery, Gallen, Nelson. Montgomery, easiest guy to move. the least amount of impact on 2025 because you've told me you're going for it. You just signed Corbin Burnes to a $210 million deal. You traded for Josh Naylor. You're betting on a Corbin Carroll bounce back. You got an MVP candidate in Ketel Marte. You're doubling down on your pitching philosophy. I still think they're going to go out and add another reliever. At this point, if you've already blown over your budget for 2024 or for 2025, you might as well just keep going. Now, within reason, but you might as well go out and spend on a reliever. If you're going to do it all the way. So why not trade the guy who does the least to impact your outlook for 2025? Nobody's projections on what the Diamondbacks are going to do in 2025 are predicated on Jordan Montgomery's role or how many games Jordan Montgomery appears in for the Diamondbacks. I'll tell you what, though, it does matter how many games Corbin Burnes appears in. It does matter how many games Zach Gallen appears in. So I would think long and hard before upsetting that apple cart. Now, if you get no takers on Jordan Montgomery, then you might have to think long and hard about trading Zach Gallen. But the moves that have been made so far tell me they're going to probably give this a run. They're going to give this until the trade deadline. They're going to give Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen, 1-2, the top of the rotation, a shot, a chance to dominate. This team won 89 games a year ago. 89 games. World Series appearance 2 years ago, nearly a 90-game winner last year. Why wouldn't you see this through? Again, I have changed my position on this. I thought there was no way they were going to be able to do this. I did not expect them to blow past their 2024 budget, which was already the highest in team history, to land Corbin Burnes. That is a move on this chessboard I didn't see. I didn't see Mike Hazen sitting across from me making that move. I didn't see it. So now that we are here, we are in this new reality, we're going to pivot a little bit. And we're going to say, give this a run through Memorial Day. See if a team wants Jordan Montgomery now to free up that roster spot and to free up a little bit of money. Get yourself closer to the 2024 number. But somebody's got to go. You can't carry 8 or 9 starters. I just don't know what you're going to do with everybody. So somebody is going to be on the go before we get to spring training. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the conversation on either of these topics. On the other side, we will look back at 2024. How did the sports landscape in the Valley look? Our thoughts on the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, the Suns, and their 2024 campaigns. We'll do it next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Oh, yeah, we're closing out the new year right. Or closing out the old year right. Right? We welcome the new year on Thursday or tomorrow. Did I say that right?
Well, it's not here yet.
Well, technically it is here. Just not for us yet.
Oh, come on.
For other parts of the world, it is 2025 already.
You start doing that, you start celebrating 2 days early.
Do time zones not exist 364 other days of the year? We're just choosing today to ignore them?
Well, yeah, but it's fun to pretend and lie to ourselves that we're all collectively together.
And that's what I'm saying. Do we lie to ourselves the other 364 days of the year when
No,
the time?
but-
Okay, so
no, but lies are fun.
Why is today an exception?
Because I want to stay up till midnight.
You can, Producer Corey, you can do that any day you'd like. You can stay up until midnight any day that you would like.
But this is the one time a year I get annoyed by fireworks.
Oh, I get annoyed by fireworks on a pretty regular basis. I have 2 dogs, so fireworks just annoy me on a regular basis because of what they do in my house. But we hope everybody celebrates the new year accordingly tonight, safely, have a good time, but close out 2024, but do it safely, and welcome in 2025 tomorrow. We are off tomorrow. We will be consuming all of the college football playoff action.
We'll be staring at ASU.
That's right, Texas ASU tomorrow, the Peach Bowl. We've got a game tonight. We're going to talk about that a little bit in hour number 2 of the program. We'll preview all these games. I'll give you my picks for them. They're not official plays for the Schubert Six. By the way, 22-8 over our last 30 picks, a 5-1 week for the second straight week. We had the Lions last night. Boy, was that a sweat. Boy, was I nervous for a large stretch of that game, but we moved to 22-8 over our last 30 picks here on the show. We make 6 picks every week, so that, doing some quick division, over the last 5 weeks, we are 22-8. So I hope that you have been following along, that you have been tailing accordingly, because we are getting hot to end the season. I will tell you, I'm already nervous about Friday's show because this is the worst week of the year to have to make picks. You got teams sitting guys. Everybody's thinking about vacation. It is one of the worst weeks of the football season to try to handicap, to try to find the numbers that make sense, to find the plays that you're going to put together for a segment like the Schubert Six. But we are not going to shy away from the opportunity. 22-8 over our last 30. We'll try to continue that streak. Back-to-back 5-1 weeks, 10-2 over our last 2 weeks. We'll try to finish that up and continue our hot streak on Friday. With 2024 coming to a close later today and 2025 starting tomorrow, I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be apropos to look back on everything that occurred in 2024 for the Suns, for the Diamondbacks, and for the Cardinals. And just kind of recap everything that happened, the roller coaster ride that I think all 3 of these teams went on. We've done a lot of Cardinals and Diamondbacks to start the show, so I think the only fair thing to do here would be to start with the Phoenix Suns. And I'll tell you, in doing this, in writing down my thoughts here on my tablet where I have the show rundown, I just wrote down some bullet points for every team just to kind of give myself a framework here. You try to recap an entire year, a lot of stuff happens. It's kind of difficult to encapsulate everything here in your memory banks. But in doing this process and writing these things down, I just found myself being more disappointed when I wrote all these things down. 2024 was a disappointing year across the board. 2024 was a year where a lot of bad stuff happened to teams where the expectations were pretty high, and no team had higher expectations than the Phoenix Suns. This is the team that has the most disappointment on them after 2024. And it's kind of the nature of the way the seasons break down, but it covers the second half of last year and then the first half of this year. Out of all the 3 teams that we're going to be talking about, the Phoenix Suns in 2024, so last year and for this year too, had the most expectations. The most expectations in the second half of last season, going into the playoffs, Big 3, championship caliber. Then they run it back this year, new coach. They fill the pieces that they needed to address. They got a point guard. They added some depth. They got a 3-and-D guy in the draft. They ran it back, and it's been disappointing again. Disappointment is the word that I would use to describe the Phoenix Suns. They have the highest expectations out of any of the 3 teams that we're going to talk about. They have the most talent out of any of these teams, and it is disaster after disaster. How about the first-round sweep last year? A quick exit from the 2024 NBA playoffs. Thanks for coming. See you later. That's how quick it happened for the 2024 Phoenix Suns. And like we said, they decided to run it back. They decided, we like the Big 3. We're not going to blow this up yet. We're not going to entertain the idea of trading Kevin Durant. We're not going to entertain the idea of trading Devin Booker. We're just going to change coaches. We're going to change philosophies. We're going to go from a defensive-minded head coach to an offensive-minded head basketball coach. That's what we're going to do. That's the approach we're going to take. We're going to get a point guard in Tyus Jones. We're going to increase our floor with our depth. We're going to be a more well-rounded group. How's it working out? How's it going for the 2024-2025 Phoenix Suns? How's this season going? Below 500, out of the playoff picture right now. Royce O'Neal going to be reevaluated in 10 days. We learned that a little bit before we went on the air today, so another injury hitting this team. Devin Booker potentially could be back tonight when they play their next basketball game. How's it going? So of the three teams we're going to talk about, the most disappointing, if it was an award, would go to the Phoenix Suns. Let's go back to the Cardinals, where we started today's show. Last season, I should say, ended the way that it did. First year for Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenfort, okay, you get the lay of the land, you set the base, you decide where you want to go, and then you have a huge offseason. You spend a decent amount of money in free agency. You land Marvin Harrison Jr. with a top 5 pick. You then start the year hot, 6-4, first place going into your bye week, control of the division, control of your own fate, the opportunity to host a home playoff game. Didn't finish all that great. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have a great rookie campaign. The question marks around Kyler Murray resurfaced for the tail end of the season. There are questions of, do they have the right play caller on offense? If you needed further proof, I guess you learned that Trey McBride is a stud. We are slowly phasing our way out of the George Kittle, Travis Kelce era of tight end. I think Brock Bowers, with the rookie season that he had, wants to be a part of the new era of the tight end in football. Trey McBride's name should also be atop of that list. I think it's a three-headed monster. It is Brock Bowers, it is Trey McBride, and it is Sam Laporta. Those three guys are special. So you learn that this year. So it's a mixed bag. You get excited about the 6-4 start. You get excited about landing Marvin Harrison Jr. You get excited about feeling like you have a head coach. You get excited about feeling like you have a general manager, right? Those are all positive. Those are all things that are certain. Check. We got those things done. And yet you end the season. You end 2024, and it's a disappointing rookie campaign for Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to finish the year at best 2-5. You're going to finish below 500. You're going to miss the playoffs. You're going to finish third in a very winnable division. We are going to start the new year asking questions about Kyler Murray's future once again. The Cardinals are the full mixed bag. The Suns, it's not a mixed bag. Bad across the board. Disaster, dumpster fire, disappointment, no question. The Cardinals, it's a mixed bag. It has some disappointment in it, but it also has a lot of positive things. And that leaves you on very shaky foundation going into 2025. It leaves you wondering, truly, where is this franchise at? They're going to win more games than they did a year ago. They're going to enter a year where it's going to be, I don't know if it'll be a full-on mandate from ownership, but the expectation will be for this team to win enough games to make it into the postseason. So a mixed bag for the Arizona Cardinals. So disappointment for the Suns, a mixed bag that's ending in disappointment for the Cardinals, and then there's the Diamondbacks, who, coming off of a World Series appearance, defending National League champions, how did they follow that up? Well, if I told you that they missed the playoffs, you would say that that's a failure. And maybe this is just the diehard baseball guy in me that wants to defend the baseball team for this segment. But they won 89 games. They were almost a 90-win team. They also almost won 90 games with basically zero starting pitching. They got 13 starts from Merrill Kelly all season long. They got 10 starts from one of their major free agent acquisitions in Eduardo Rodriguez. They got 21 mostly disappointing starts from Jordan Montgomery. Corbin Carroll had the worst year of his professional career, and yet they won 89 games. And so you can look at it and say they missed the playoffs after going to the World Series. I would point to everything that went wrong for them, and they still got to 89 games. Ketel Marte was an MVP candidate for 3/4 of the season. He was neck and neck with Shohei Ohtani until he got hurt, and then Francisco Lindor just took off in the second half. You won 89 games with Corbin Carroll being a shell of himself. You won 89 games getting basically zero starting pitching. Only one guy made 30 starts. And so I think in the same way that the Cardinals are a mixed bag, the Diamondbacks are a mixed bag. And you know what? They get credit for this. They just signed Corbin Burnes. That's a nice little way to just end 2024 and go into 2025. You landed the best free agent starting pitcher available. You pulled off a coup. You pulled off a heist. You deserve credit for that. When we look back at 2024 as a whole, that move deserves to be a part of the list. If we're going to give the Cardinals praise for drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. and acquiring him, the Diamondbacks get credit for landing Corbin Burnes. So the Cardinals and Diamondbacks, mixed bags. And I think mixed bags going in different directions. The Cardinals, mixed bag ending on the negative side. The Diamondbacks, mixed bag ending on the positive side. The Suns, no mixed bag. Just utter disappointment, utter failure, collapse are the words that I would use to describe the Phoenix Suns. So that was your landscape in 2024. Oh, yeah, we also lost the hockey team. And if we want to very quickly shout out the Arizona State Sun Devils, Kenny Dillingham activated the Valley, playing in a college football playoff game to start 2025. So it's not all bad. It's not all terrible. There were some good things. But 2025, a really important year for a lot of these franchises. I feel like a bunch of them, all three of them really, at big-time crossroads. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join the lunch break here today. We will wrap up hour number one on the other side. It's not just the signing of Corbin Burnes. There's an even bigger reason to believe that the Diamondbacks are the best-run team in Arizona. I'll explain next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. I think there is a very easy case to be made that the Arizona Diamondbacks are the best-run team, professional team in Arizona, over the Cardinals, over the Suns. I don't think it's even debatable, the job that Mike Hazen has done in that front office, the support that he has gotten from ownership, clearly via the signing of Corbin Burnes. But don't just take my word for it. Take the word of the people's opinion that I think matters the most. The other executives in the sport. The Athletic put out a story yesterday that was a ranking of the best front offices in sports. Now, spoiler, the Diamondbacks don't rank very high. They're not a top 10 front office. But that's not the point here. The point here is to show where the Diamondbacks sit in the power structure of sports organizations here in Arizona. So The Athletic sent out to 40 personnel people in each sport, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, across them all, and asked these people to rank the front offices in their respective sports. And then they took all of those numbers, they added them all up, and if you got a first place vote, it was worth 10 points, and so on and so forth, the way they do awards voting, right? And so then it spat out a number, right? You added it all up, and the top team was Oklahoma City. For this story, they got 329 total points. So amongst all the NBA teams, they were ranked to a place where they got 329 total points. So not just was that the best in basketball, it was the best overall. They got the most points out of any team. So they are viewed as the best front office in sports because the other executives and personnel people in the NBA viewed them the highest. Again, the best way to see where you are as an organization is to see who is envious of you, to see who is most respectful of you, which other organizations in your league view you or how they view you. They viewed, this athletic story viewed how the direct competition viewed the other organizations. As we mentioned, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the runaway favorite, the runaway winner. The others in the top 5, the Dodgers, Ravens, Rays, and Dallas Stars. How am I going to link this back to the Arizona teams? Well, I'll tell you exactly where the Arizona teams ranked on this list. There were 2 Arizona teams that made this list. There are only 3 professional sports organizations. The Coyotes can't make the list anymore. The Diamondbacks were 26th on this list. They got 43 points. The Cardinals got 1 point. They were tied for 70th with a bunch of teams who all at least got 1 vote. The Suns were not mentioned on this list, did not receive a vote. There's your answer. Look at how the rest of Major League Baseball views Mike Hazen, views Ken Kendrick, views the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were 26th overall. They had 43 points. The Cardinals got 1 vote from 1 executive somewhere in the National Football League. The Suns didn't get a single vote. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago on this show where we talked about the NBA ranking of teams, and there was a list that the Suns were on that they didn't get a vote about being one of the best well-run teams? They were in a group with like the Bulls, the Pelicans, the Hornets, just teams you just didn't want to be on a list with. That's where the Suns found themselves. These leagues are telling you how they feel about the Cardinals and the Suns. And Major League Baseball is telling you how they feel about Mike Hazen. And it's not just because you signed Corbin Burnes to a $210 million deal. It's how well run you are. It's how well you do your job. It's when you're a team that is got limited resources, the way the Diamondbacks have limited resources, and this is something you can't knock the Suns for or the Cardinals for. Salary cap sport in the NFL, the Cardinals spend money. The Suns are second apron team this year. They're spending like a major market, which Phoenix is. The Diamondbacks aren't. And yet with that, Mike Hazen has overseen a World Series appearance, oversaw an 89-win season a year ago in which they had no business winning 89 games. No business. With the pitching loss that they had, with Corbin Carroll being as bad as he was. No business. But that's because of roster construction. That's because of depth that you build up. That's because of the moves you're able to make. That earns you the respect of your peers. And you see that in the way that the Diamondbacks are represented on this list. And you see the way Monty Ossenfort is a new general manager, Michael Bidwell as an owner who there are countless number of stories out there about the way he has run the Arizona Cardinals, and they're not all pretty. That's why maybe they don't get votes. Matt Ishbia, brand new to town, brand new to the gig, probably hasn't done enough, hasn't earned enough respect to earn a vote. But this goes to show you why consistent leadership ultimately wins the day. When you give an organization and a general manager the runway to institute their philosophies, their principles, their methods to building a team. Now, that doesn't mean give them the longest runway possible, but when you give them a decent enough runway, a respectable sized runway, normally that patience is rewarded. Normally that patience pays off if you've hired the right person. And the Diamondbacks clearly have hired the right person. Mike Hazen is the best general manager in this town. The Diamondbacks, I don't even think it's a question right now. They're the best run team in this town. Monty Ossenfort's doing a lot. Jonathan Gannon's doing a lot. I think everybody right now would take Mike Hazen and Torey Lovello over Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort. I know I certainly would. Coach, GM, across the board, Mike Hazen, number one on my list. The best executive coach, personnel person, however you want to describe this, organizational leader, Mike Hazen is number one on my power rankings in this state. That's how good of a job he has done, because he's doing it with less than the other two teams are. He's doing it with more limitations the other two teams are. He's doing it with more competition than the other two teams are. And yet, he put together a team that went to the World Series. He put together a team that won 89 games a year ago. He put together a team that just signed Corbin Burnes and is going to try to threaten for the National League West this year. The Cardinals, while trending in the right direction, and we think 2025 is going to be good for them, a collapse at the end of the year. Still waiting for Kyler Murray to win a playoff game. Still waiting for them to win a division. Still waiting for all those things. The Suns, I'm still waiting for this big three to win a playoff series. I'm still waiting for Devin Booker. Made it to the finals, didn't really pan out. I'm still waiting on all those things. Year in and year out, who is the most consistent? Who is the person that is able to get the job done on a regular enough basis? And the only answer to that question is Mike Hazen, and you see it in the way the other members of their respective sports view them. They don't view the Suns as a well-run front office. They don't view the Cardinals as a well-run front office. They don't view those teams as top-tier teams. They don't view the Cardinals the way they view the Ravens. They don't view the Suns the way they view Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City, the best front office in all of sports. Why? Because the respect that everybody else in the NBA has for Oklahoma City with the way they go about things, the way they accumulate assets, the way they draft and develop, the way they hire coaches, the way they run their entire organization earns the respect. When you are constantly firing coaches, when you are constantly underperforming, when you are constantly making mistakes, you just don't earn the respect. People view you and say, I think anybody else can do that job better. Truthfully, can anybody do the job of being the general manager, president of baseball ops for the Arizona Diamondbacks better than the way Mike Hazen has done it? Could another general manager, we'll tie this back to Corbin Burnes, could another general manager have walked into the owner's office? And I don't know if this went down this way, but let's just go on this journey together for a second. Corbin Burnes, his representation, they call the Diamondbacks. They say that they want to see if the Diamondbacks are interested. We know this part of the conversation is true. If you're Mike Hazen, is there another person that could walk in to Ken Kendrick and say, listen, I know you're spending more money than you've ever spent on this team, but we have a unique opportunity in front of us, and here's an opportunity to sign the best free agent starting pitcher at a dollar amount that is not going to be sticker shock. He's not asking for $350 million. This is incredibly fair. We are getting a deal out of this. We can structure it in the right way. We can do what needs to be done. I need you to greenlight this. Could another general manager in this town or another general manager take over this job and sway Ken Kendrick and give him that sales pitch? I think the only person that could have done it is Mike Hazen, because Mike Hazen has proven over and over and over again to have made some really good decisions. He traded for Zach Allen. Now, is everything a home run? No, absolutely not. You're not going to be a long-standing general manager in a professional sports organization without your fair share of mistakes. Madison Bumgarner, mistake. But when you have the respect of ownership and you're able to make that sales pitch and that sales pitch wins out, yeah, you're going to earn the respect of, because here's what just the Corbin Burnes signing does. It's going to make a lot of other general managers look at Mike Hazen differently and say, man, you got to convince Ken Kendrick to spend more than he's ever spent before to land Corbin Burnes. Good on you. Good job. You earn the respect. What the Cardinals are doing, they're getting there. They're on track. If there was a team that's right behind the Diamondbacks, is a team that I think could get there, it's the Cardinals more so than it is the Suns. Because I think the Suns are closer to a complete reset than they are to being a championship caliber team. That's just where we stand right now as we enter 2025. The Cardinals appear to be on the right track. They have a general manager that appears to be making the right decisions. They have a head coach that I think we all believe in. They have some other things that they need to figure out, but they have a team right now that we all think is trending in the right direction. The arrow for the Suns is trending downward. But the other executives across the sports are telling you how they feel about Mike Hazen. And to see the disparity, the Suns not even getting mentioned, the Cardinals barely getting mentioned, the Diamondbacks, a top 30 front office, ranked with other basketball teams, with other football teams, viewed that highly, viewed that strongly by the other executives in Major League Baseball. And so I just thought it was a really interesting anecdote because, yeah, you can sign Corbin Burnes, and that's going to generate you a lot of pub. But this was put together before Burnes. These votes went out, and the Diamondbacks were viewed, again, not on the level of the Dodgers or the Rays or some of the other teams. And so it's not like they're viewed as one of the best, the top 3 front offices in baseball. But it's very drastic to see the way the rest of Major League Baseball views the Diamondbacks and the way the other leagues view the Suns and view the Cardinals. And there is a large gap between the respect level that those other organizations have gotten in comparison to the one that the Suns have, or to the respect that the Diamondbacks have gained so far. That's a credit to Mike Hazen. That's a credit to the best general manager in this town. Hour number 1 in the books. We will kick off hour number 2 talking some college football. Let's break down all 4 of the college football playoff games that we are going to see, with one starting tonight at the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State, Boise State tonight. That is how we will start hour number 2. We will do it next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. When we get back in here on Thursday to do the Thursday edition of the lunch break, the first edition of 2025, we will know the final 4 teams in the college football playoff. We will know, this is normally when the college football playoff would start, we would know the 4 teams, they would play the 2 games and we would play a championship. The first year of the 12-team college football playoff, I think, has been a roaring success. I think everyone has enjoyed the extra drama, even though these games have been blowouts. That's been a big topic of conversation in college football right now, the lack of competitiveness in the first-round games that we had. Parity is a conversation that people have been discussing quite a bit. I will weigh in very quickly on that, and then we're going to preview all 4 of these games starting tonight with Penn State and Boise State. Blowouts are going to happen in sports. They happen in the NFL playoffs. They happen in baseball. They happen all across the board. To just look at a result individually and say, see, this is why blank team didn't belong, or this is why we didn't need a 12-team playoff, is ignoring everything that goes on throughout the course of the regular season that leads us to the poor decisions that the College Football Playoff Committee was making before we expanded to 12. And one could argue that they still made poor decisions even when they got to put 12 teams in. But blowouts happen. Blowouts are a part of sports. One individual result in the first round of the College Football Playoff is not a sign to say this was a mistake, these teams don't belong, shrink it back down to 8 or to 6 or 4. No. So very much not on board with this narrative out there that these blowouts are showing why a 12-team playoff was a bad idea. It's just not how it works. Tonight, Penn State, Boise State, Fiesta Bowl, the first of 4 college football playoff quarterfinal matchups. And the takeaway from this game, and so we'll preview all 4. I'll give you a pick at the end of every single breakdown. The story behind Penn State, Boise State is, can the darling of the BCS era, the darling of the mid-major era, the darling of the small school getting representation, Boise State, they are the embodiment of this movement, a movement that I have been on the front lines of. Social media, podcasting, radio, I have been at the front lines of defending the mid-majors, defending the small schools, saying that there is a large school bias, that there is a bias against these mid-majors. There's a bias against being inclusive to all of the schools that we see across college football. Boise State, the poster child for that movement, because they are the team that has been in these moments and has those memorable victories, has the Statue of Liberty play that occurred in this state, in that building, the same building that that team will be playing tonight with a Heisman Trophy finalist in their backfield. So, this game, I don't want to reduce it to this lens, but I really think this is the storyline. Can Boise play spoiler? Penn State's a big favorite in this game, not as big of a favorite as Texas is, but Boise State a double-digit underdog in this game. Penn State, I believe, is an 11-point favorite the last time that I looked. Can Boise State play spoiler? Well, if you were going to play spoiler, it would help to have a Heisman Trophy finalist on your team. It would help to have one of the best running backs we have ever seen in college football take the field for you. That is a difference maker. That type of player being on your team allows you to put the other team on upset watch. And so if Penn State can try to stop Ashton Jeanty, and if they're able to do it, then no, Boise State's not going to play spoiler. But if they don't have an answer for Ashton Jeanty, and let's be honest, not many have had an answer for the best running back in the country, one of the best running backs of all time in college football. Not many teams have had an answer this year for him. And so if there isn't an answer that Penn State's able to put together, a Penn State defense littered with talent that's going to play on Sundays, a quarterback on the offensive side that by returning to school puts himself in position to be a top pick, potentially the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft. If they can slow down Ashton Jeanty, no spoiler. If they can't, if Jeanty does what he's been doing all season long, buckle up, Penn State. You're going to be in for a fight. You're going to be in for 4 quarters. You're going to be in for drama. You're not going to cover the 11. And so if you're going to pick a team to be a spoiler, if you're going to take an underdog, it certainly helps your case to have a Heisman Trophy finalist on your team. That being said, And there's so many. Penn State winning a big game is a question mark. Boise State, this is who they are. You know they're just going to identify with being the underdog, being the scrappy team that nobody believes in, being back in Glendale and State Farm Stadium, Fiesta Bowl is just going to bring back all those memories. They're going to play all the highlights on the broadcast tonight. I mean, it is just ripe for the upset, right? It is ripe for me to take Boise State. And so you know what? That's exactly what we're going to do. Give me Boise State in the upset. Give me Boise State shocking the world tonight as a double-digit underdog. Give me Boise State to show that these small schools do belong, that your conversation about blowouts and parity is not a conversation we should be having. Give me Boise State over Penn State. Texas ASU, the next game up, that will take place tomorrow. We will certainly be watching it very closely here for this show. If you're watching the show on YouTube, cheap plug for the YouTube video version of the show and for our YouTube channel in general. Just search KDUS AM 1060 on YouTube. You can watch the show live. You can hop into the live comments. We will read your comments here on the air, your thoughts. You can also join 480-864-1060 on the phone line. But the video version, you will see I'm wearing my Sun Devil hat today, trying to put the good vibes out there ahead of the Peach Bowl tomorrow. This all comes down to Arizona State. Can they get off to a good start? Can Cam Scattaboo, same conversation we were kind of having about Ashton Genty, can Cam Scattaboo be the difference maker? Should have been a Heisman Trophy finalist, one of the best backs in the country. If he is able to get off to a good start against the Texas defense that, let's face it, I think there's an opportunity here. And so if they can get off to a fast start, if they can get out to an early lead, if they can control the tempo with Scattaboo, if they can attack this Texas run defense, then they have a chance. That's the recipe for an upset. You just worry about all of the players on the other side of the field. ASU, unlike Boise State, they're an outsider. They belong, but they're an outsider. They shouldn't have been here. They are. They deserve to be here. They've played well enough to be here. Again, not taking anything away from them, but they are the outsider. And I watched Boise State play Oregon close. I've watched ASU take care of Iowa State in a blowout, take care of Kansas State in Manhattan, Kansas, take care of BYU at home. I watched them do all of this. So there's a resume there. But, Texas probably just feels like they're going to be too much. I expect the game to be close. I expect the game to not be a blowout. I know everyone's circling this one as their blowout of all the 4 games. I am not willing to go to that extreme. I think this game is close, but I think Texas wins. So they don't cover, but Texas wins the football game. So I have Boise State and Texas moving on in the first 2. Ohio State, Oregon. I think your storyline here is, will the real Ohio State step up? Will they present themselves? If the Ohio State that we saw against Tennessee, if that Ohio State shows up, they can beat any of the other teams still left. They can beat Oregon. They can beat Georgia. They can beat Notre Dame. They can beat Penn State. They can beat any single team that is left standing if they play the way that they played against Tennessee. The issue with Ohio State, with Ryan Day, with Will Howard, is that they have not done that all year long. They have been inconsistent. That's not the way they played against Michigan to end the season. So which version of Ohio State shows up? Oregon, the only unbeaten still left here in college football. They've been excellent all season. They are better than when these two teams met earlier in the year. And I think, truthfully, I don't know if you feel this way, but Oregon kind of feels forgotten about. Everybody's talking about ASU, the darling. They're talking about Georgia, talking about Texas, Ohio State coming off of a big-time performance, Penn State, Boise State playing spoiler. All these teams are getting pub. Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, they're just kind of just trotting along, not really getting talked about all that much. And that's probably going to leave a chip on their shoulder. So which Ohio State team shows up, and does Oregon play with that little extra chip on their shoulder that I think exists because everybody's talking about everybody else, basically? For me, I'll take Oregon. Ryan Day in a big game, I'll believe it when I see it, right? I'll believe Will Howard can put together back-to-back performances when I see it in these big spots. Did it last week against Tennessee or their last game against Tennessee. I don't expect them to be that version of themselves here against Oregon. I expect Oregon to win the football game. And then Notre Dame, Georgia. No Beck, no problem. That's your question mark with Georgia. Are they able to make it work without their starting quarterback? They have a top 5 coach, top 3 coach in college football. They have one of the best rosters in college football. They're the 2 seed for a reason. despite not having their quarterback. And so are they able to win the football game without their starting quarterback, who they're not going to have for the remainder of this run? So are they able to do it? And Notre Dame, we saw what they were able to do against Indiana. Can they continue to roll against Georgia? I'll take Georgia in this one just by default, even though they don't have their quarterback. Coaching matchup, talent matchup, I think is skewed their direction. So I'll go Georgia. So I know I'm going heavy favorite, but I went Boise State, Texas, Oregon, Georgia. I think those are your final four. I think those are the four that will be playing in the semifinals. Those are my predictions. Again, these are not official Schubert 6 plays. The Schubert 6, 22-8 over our last 30. We are not going to take these 4 plays and attach that to what has been a very good record over the last 5 weeks. But figured we would preview it since ASU is playing tomorrow, and we're not going to be on tomorrow. We'll be back on Thursday. When we get to Thursday, we will be down to the Final Four in college football, and we will see if ASU gets to be a part of that Final Four. I don't think so. I picked Texas to win the football game. My one upset this week is going to be Boise State tonight, taking down Penn State, and then I have it going chalk the rest of the way. On the other side, New Year's resolutions for all of the teams in town. The Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, and the Suns. What should they be focusing on in 2025? I will tell you next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Well, everybody's doing it. Everybody's making New Year's resolutions. Bruce Corey, are you a resolutions guy?
No, not at all.
Is there a difference between resolutions and goals? Are we differentiating between those two things?
I would say like goals are more kind of what you want to do in the future, regardless of New Year's or not. But resolutions are more focused to the one new year in particular. Like, 2025, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm a goals guy.
Yes.
I spend this week, the lead up to New Year and the first couple days after the New Year, and I set my goals for the year. Now, for me, the way I differentiate between a resolution and a goal is when I put out a resolution, it's just a blanket statement.
Yeah.
When I put out a goal, there's action items. This is the goal. This is what we're going to do to get there, right?
Yes.
I take it a step further. So when I do my goal mapping for the year, and we have a bunch here for the show, for the station, a lot of stuff we're working on, that's just for work. I also have a personal goal list that I will list out, but it'll have action items. The resolution's kind of just it's a catchy slogan, right? That's what a resolution is going to be. So what we are going to do is we're going to kind of blend the two, right? We're going to have the fancy resolutions for the teams. But we can make it some goal building. We can give out some action items of how they get here.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do both. Because I have resolutions for all three teams, for the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, and the Suns. And two of them really kind of feel like resolutions, the way that they're phrased. And then for one of the teams, it's the Cardinals in particular, this very much is like a goal. This is just like a do this in 2025, and this will be good for you. And I will tell you, there are a lot of different things you could say about all of these teams. We, in hour number 1 of the show, and if you missed anything, make sure you podcast the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to the show there, and it'll drop into your feed the moment that we post them. Both hours of the show every single day podcasted wherever you get your podcasts. So if you didn't catch us in hour number 1, go back into the podcast feed and listen. But we recapped 2024 for all of these teams. And let's face it, mixed bag, but a lot of bad for these teams across the board. And when you have a lot of bad, that means there's a lot of stuff to fix. There are a lot of things to do. And so it would be easy to have 4 or 5 or 6 different things for all of these teams. So don't take this as this is the one and only thing that this team needs to do. This is just what I think the New Year's resolution should be for this team. So let's start with the Phoenix Suns. And this is one of the resolutions. This is just a phrase. This is just a mantra. Decide on who you are. 2025 needs to be about deciding who the Phoenix Suns are. Are the Phoenix Suns a team that is going to see this through with the big three? Or are they kind of starting to be on the fence of moving on? Whatever the case may be, firmly plant yourself into one of those camps. I think staying the course, keeping the status quo is a mistake. I think it would come back to bite the Phoenix Suns. But at least if you're definitive, if you see it through, you sign Kevin Durant to an extension, you try to run this back next year and make tweaks, fine. You've at least picked a direction. One I disagree with strongly, one I will criticize here on the show, but you've picked a direction. Flirting with Jimmy Butler, potentially making that trade, trading Bradley Beal, getting him to waive his no-trade clause, all of this noise about trying to make moves that we know this team can't make. Pick a direction and stick with it. Decide on who you are. And once you decide on who you are, once you pick that direction, commit to that direction. You want to stay with the big three? Sign Kevin Durant to a contract extension. Don't pursue trades for Bradley Beal. Run it back with this group. Don't change coaches. See this through. But if you are starting to waver, then you need to hit the full reset button. Trade Kevin Durant. Don't sign him to an extension. See if Bradley Beal would waive his no-trade clause. I think once you traded Kevin Durant, that would certainly open the door, and then have an earnest and honest conversation about moving Devin Booker. That's it. Decide on who you are. That's what the Phoenix Suns need to do in 2025. The Diamondbacks, this is easy. Stay the course. World Series appearance 2 seasons ago. 89 wins, barely missed the playoffs last year. You've signed Corbin Burnes. What you have been doing is working. Corbin Carroll's going to have a bounce back year. Ketel Marte is still here and is an MVP candidate. Josh Naylor, you got 30 home run power at first base, and he's a player that's 7 years younger than the guy you had at first base. You have a prospect system that has players. Jordan Lawler going to be a contributor in 2025. You have starting pitching depth in the minors that could develop into nice pieces for your rotation beyond 2025. Stay the course. What you have been doing is working. The investment that you're getting from ownership is good. Stay the course, and you will be rewarded. Because I know they missed the playoffs a year ago, and I know that was disappointing. That was their follow-up to a World Series appearance. But this team won 89 games, barely missed the playoffs. They added Corbin Burnes. You don't think people are going to be excited for Diamondbacks baseball? You don't think people are going to be excited for any time a National League West team is in town? You don't think those series are going to be hot tickets? I mean, baseball, my favorite sport. I try to go to as many games as possible. That is going to be a hot ticket this year, especially if they're playing good baseball. It's going to be tough to get into that building on a regular basis if you want to. That's how hot the ticket is going to be. So they're going to generate a decent amount of revenue. They don't have a TV deal, yet they're spending money. Stay the course. Continue to attack free agency the way that you attack it. Be advantageous when opportunities like a Jordan Montgomery or a Corbin Burnes present themselves. Be willing to admit when those projects, those experiments don't work out. Develop the way that you have been developing. Acquire talent via trade and free agency the way that you have been doing it. What you are doing is working. Stay the course. Don't get complacent. Continue to innovate. Continue to invest where you are investing, but stay the course. Your philosophy, the way that you are running your team, is working. You have a team that's going to be in the mix for the National League West. I feel very comfortable going on record with that. They have the best rotation in the division. They have the rotation that I believe in the most in the division. Stay the course. And then you have the Arizona Cardinals. And this is where it becomes more of a goal. This is something to strive for in 2024, or 2025, excuse me. Develop Marvin Harrison Jr. and get him a running mate. That's the New Year's resolution goal for the Arizona Cardinals. Develop Marvin Harrison Jr. further. His rookie campaign, let's face it, not what we thought it was going to be. It's not what we're seeing in New York with Malik Neighbors. It's not what you're seeing in Jacksonville with Brian Thomas Jr. It's not what Brock Bowers is doing in Vegas as a tight end. It's not what other first-round wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, name a first-round wide receiver over the last couple years. It is not that. Jackson Smith and Jigba. It is not Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. It is not any of those guys. That doesn't mean it is a bad pick. It doesn't mean that he is a bust. You have to now show us your player development chops. You drafted a player with the number 4 overall pick that has immense talent. There clearly is some level of adjustment that needs to occur, whether it is via play calling, whether it is through Marvin Harrison Jr. himself working on stuff, but whatever it is, you got to develop Marvin Harrison Jr. You have to put together a plan. You have to execute that plan. Because you can't allow this pick to be a waste. We can't be having this conversation next year. One of the best ways to be able to do that, other than the player development side of it, is get Marvin Harrison Jr. the Robin to his Batman. Get him a running mate. Get him a number 2. Because if you get him a really solid number 2, it's going to force defenses to make a choice. And defenses are not going to be able to make that choice every single rep of every single game of 2025. And I'll tell you, there is somebody that I think would make the perfect running mate. And this is a guy that most teams who need a wide receiver are going to go after. But I think this guy would be the perfect running mate for Marvin Harrison Jr. It would be the perfect splash for a team that has the cap space that the Cardinals have. So this is an action item. I don't want to say you have to get this guy or else the goal or resolution fails. But we say needing to get a running mate. I'll give you an action item. Make T. Higgins wear the Cardinal red, the Cardinal white. Make T. Higgins wear the Cardinals uniform next season. There's your action item. Marvin Harrison Jr. and T. Higgins as your 1-2, as your Batman and Robin, immediately overnight changes your offense. It changes your identity. It instantly makes it more difficult to defend your passing game. Because if you want to focus on Marvin Harrison Jr., T. Higgins will wreck your defense. You want to focus on T. Higgins? Marvin Harrison Jr. was the number 4 pick in the draft for a reason. He will wreck your defense. He will wreck a game. Good luck. How many teams in the NFL can you say have 2 highly respected corners that could guard T. Higgins and Marvin Harrison Jr. for 4 quarters? Not many. So develop Marvin Harrison Jr. behind the scenes, put together the right plan, develop him, work with him, come up with better play design. Show us your player development skills. That's part of this as well. So not only do you develop Marvin Harrison Jr., but you show us your ability to coach up players, to develop young talent. That's part of 2025 as well for the Arizona Cardinals. But get him a running mate, and preferably make that running mate T. Higgins. You have the cap space. You have the quarterback under contract. You're clearly running it back next year. There's no indication right now that you're going to trade Kyler Murray, despite what I say here on this radio show. So if you are going to go all in, if you are going to run it back with Kyler Murray, then there need to be no excuses. Take the excuses off the table. Guess what? Acquiring T. Higgins takes that excuse off the table. So there's your New Year's resolution. There's what you should be doing. Go out and get T. Higgins. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. a running mate. That is what you need to do. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join us. Normally, I tease the next segment by saying we do our post-week 17 power rankings. With it being the last week of the season, we're going to do things a little differently. With 17 teams either locked up a playoff spot or still fighting for a playoff spot, I thought we would do it this way. Let's rank all 17 of those teams in how likely they are to win the Super Bowl. We'll do that next during the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. I need approval for what we're about to do. Producer Corey, I need a little bit of a longer runway in this segment.
Okay.
Because normally we power rank 10 teams. I'm
Yes.
power ranking 17 of them. So if you don't mind, I'd like a little bit of a longer runway here to try to get this plane up into the air here.
A little more breather room.
Just a little bit more, so you're not telling me in my ear we've got 2 minutes and I'm on team 10. So just giving you a heads up.
All right, I appreciate that.
I
Thank
need
you.
a little bit of a longer runway because with 17 teams either have already locked up a playoff spot or are still mathematically alive for a playoff spot, I thought we would close out 2024 with a different wrinkle on our power rankings. I thought we would put all 17 of those teams in a blender, and we would blend it all up, and we would pull them all out, and we would rank them on how likely I think they are to win the Super Bowl. Because all of these teams right now are either in the playoffs, so playing for a chance to win a championship, or are still mathematically alive to be one of the final teams in the dance to try to win a Super Bowl. So let's see how we think all of these teams shake out with 17 of them still mathematically alive. So we're going to do this. We're going to hit this button. We might need this loop a couple of times here, but we are going to get this plane off the ground. We start with the team that I have ranked 17th in how likely they are to win the Super Bowl, because they are still mathematically alive. All these teams either are or have clinched a playoff spot. But out of all the teams we're going to talk about, I have zero belief in the Atlanta Falcons. They have changed quarterbacks late in the season. I have not been overly impressed with the way Michael Penix has played since coming in. He was able to beat the Giants and didn't look all that great down the stretch of that game against the Commanders on Sunday night. So even if they were able to sneak in, even if the Bucs drop their game on Sunday, the Falcons win, and they're able to get in over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they're a first-round exit. They're starting a rookie quarterback who hasn't looked great. It would be, his fourth start at that point? I can't say I think that team is likely to go on a run and win a Super Bowl. And so because of all of that, they get put 17th on this list. Now, I will tell you, there are two teams that have rookie quarterbacks that are ranked higher than the Atlanta Falcons. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's the fact that his playoff game would be his fourth career start. These other teams that we're going to talk about have been starting rookies all season long, and those two quarterbacks arguably have gotten better and better and better throughout the season. I've got at least a decent sample size with those quarterbacks. With Michael Penix Jr., I'll have 4 games, 3 really, before he even starts a playoff game. I can't buy it. I can't see it. They are 17th. 16th, the Miami Dolphins. Look, if they're able to sneak in, be one of the last teams in the AFC, they're going to be a wild card team. In order to win a Super Bowl, you're going to have to go on the road as a wild card team. That means you're going to have to go to Buffalo. It means you're going to have to go to Kansas City. That means cold weather Tua, potentially. Tyler Huntley might start that game for them. Either way, if it's Tyler Huntley or it's cold weather Tua, I'm uninterested in picking the Miami Dolphins as a team to win the Super Bowl. So these teams right now that we're talking about, it is zero are the chances that I think these teams have. In the case of Atlanta and Miami, if they get in, they're not even locked in. A team that is locked in they're 15th, because I am all the way out on this team, the Houston Texans. This is not last year's Houston Texans team. C.J. Stroud doesn't look the same. The offense as a whole doesn't look the same. They feel like they're fighting it all year long. Now, they're going to win the division. They're going to host a home playoff game. That's great. And they might win that home playoff game depending on who they draw as their wild card opponent. But after that, can you see this team the way they're currently constructed? That's the lens you have to look at this through. Can you see this team the way that they are currently constructed, going to Arrowhead and winning a game against the Kansas City Chiefs? Can you see them going to Buffalo and beating the Buffalo Bills? Can you see them going into Baltimore and beating the Ravens? And the answer to all 3 of those teams is no. So yeah, you might be able to win a playoff game because you draw the Broncos or you draw the Dolphins who sneak in at the last minute. Maybe you're able to win that playoff game. Even if you do, I don't like your chances in the next round. They are 15th. 14th, the Denver Broncos. Look, they got a rookie quarterback. And rookie quarterbacks on the road against Kansas City, against all the teams that we just mentioned. And Bo Nix hasn't played great. He's been fine. They have a coach that's been there, done that, so you believe in him. But Bo Nix against Lamar Jackson, who you taking? Bo Nix against Josh Allen, who you taking? Bo Nix against Patrick Mahomes, who you taking? You just don't think that Denver's going to be able to hold on and hang with those teams in a playoff game. Now, their defense is good, but I don't think they're going to hold every single one of those teams to a low-scoring, close four-quarter affair. They're going to probably have to score with them, and I just don't see them being able to do that. At 13, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a great story. Baker Mayfield's balling out. I do think, though, they have a ceiling with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and I think they could win a first-round playoff game. And I think, unlike the teams we're talking about in the AFC, I think they could beat Philly. I think they could beat Detroit. I think they could beat Minnesota. They beat Detroit earlier in the year. One of the rare blemishes on the Lions' record is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, unlike all those other teams we're talking about in the AFC, I can at least see it more with the Bucs. But I just think there's a ceiling with Baker Mayfield. There's a ceiling with this offense. And I think as the defenses get better, because you get to beat up on the Saints, you get to beat up on the Panthers, I think as the competition increases and the defenses get better, and you're going to face some pretty good defenses. The Eagles have a good defense. The Vikings defense has been extraordinary in the second half. I just worry if the Cinderella story that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers runs out. Number 12, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's face it, great story. Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson, defying the odds, going to get into the playoffs. But look at how they've played when they have played the good teams. Remember how they played against the Eagles. Remember how they played against the Ravens on Saturday. Remember how they played against the Chiefs. Remember, those three games are all within the last month or so. It's recent. It might be some recency bias, but guess what? You know who you're going to draw in the postseason? The Eagles in a potential Super Bowl. The Ravens and the Chiefs in the AFC playoff race. And you have shown me over the last month that you can't hang with those teams. It's not a shot at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They can't hang with those teams. Russell Wilson has defied the odds. He's played a lot better than almost anybody expected him to in 2024. Credit to him. Credit to Mike Tomlin for making the change. They're a great story. They're more competitive than we thought. But when asking this question of how likely they are to win the Super Bowl, I'll take them over all the teams behind them because you've got Mike Tomlin, who's a great coach. But you ask yourself, you've seen them recently play the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs, and all three of them have been losses. And truthfully, they haven't been competitive in any single one of those games. How am I supposed to think it's going to be any different in the postseason? 11, the Washington Commanders, rookie quarterback. Jayden Daniels hasn't really played like a rookie all this year. There have been moments, but he's played really well. And they beat the Eagles. Yes, it was without Jalen Hurts, but they beat the Eagles. They've played really good teams close. And so the reason why I can't put him higher, rookie quarterback, first-year head coach, Cliff Kingsbury in the postseason, it's just a recipe for disaster. But I like their odds better than Pittsburgh because I at least have seen it from Washington. I like it better than all the teams below them. Number 10, this is going to be a surprise. This team needs a lot of help to get in. But if they do, I think they deserve to be in the top 10, the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow in the postseason? Yeah, I'll take that. You got to go into Arrowhead and you got to score a bunch of points? Yeah, I'll take Joe Burrow to do that. You got to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? Yeah, I'll take Joe Burrow to do that. You got to go toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson and you got to get into the 30s? Yeah, I'll take Joe Burrow to do that. That's why the Cincinnati Bengals, if they get in, can be dangerous. Their defense is not turned a corner. It has not. It will not. They are a flawed team defensively. They're going to have to play every game the way the Lions are going to have to play every game in the postseason. That being said, if they get in, look out. Look out. Because Joe Burrow is the quarterback. That is an offense that can do it. They can score the points. They can do what Pittsburgh can't. We are now inside the top 10. We'll start with the Los Angeles Chargers. They have the recipe to be a team that can go on a run. Well-coached, defense, running game. And oh, by the way, they have a top 5 quarterback in the league in Justin Herbert. So you add all that up, you feel really good about it. But you also have a lot of guys who haven't been there, done that under Harbaugh. And this is their first entrance into the gauntlet that is the AFC. And so it's more so of you just got to show it to me once. When we do this, when we do our power rankings, and maybe we'll take this idea and we'll morph it, and every week we'll kind of reset where we think these teams are. If they win a game in the postseason and they look impressive doing so, I think that would allow me the ability to get more on board. I want to be on board because they have a top 5 quarterback, because they're well coached, because they have the recipe to be able to go on the road and win football games. But I got to see a little bit more before I'm willing to put them into that upper echelon. The Green Bay Packers at number 8, let me tell you, I wouldn't want to draw LaFleur and Jordan Love in a postseason game. I wouldn't want to draw that head coach quarterback combo in a playoff game. Home road, on the moon, in a foreign country, in Lambeau Field, where, time of day, doesn't matter. I would be afraid to draw that combo in the playoffs because they are talented enough. Maybe they're not consistent enough, but that is a head coach quarterback combo that is talented enough to beat me on any single day. At number 7, the Los Angeles Rams. This is going to sound really familiar. I wouldn't want to draw Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford in a playoff game, especially with the way that they're playing right now. They started the year terribly, and they have turned things around. Why? Because they got a great head coach, and they have a great quarterback. And those two things play well. Those two things travel well. Been there, done that, both of them. Super Bowl champions, both of them. McVay, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl loser. Has been through the ups and downs. Knows the pitfalls of the postseason. Knows how to navigate the postseason. That's a scary combo. That's a scary thing to have to face in the postseason, especially with a team that is as hot as the Rams are right now. We get into the top 6. This is going to surprise a lot of people, but this is where I have the Detroit Lions. This defense is a problem. Did you watch last night's game? Did you watch Monday Night Football last night? They had a real tough time stopping the San Francisco 49ers, who offensively have been all over the place this season. And it's not their fault. They're dealing with just an absolute rash of injuries. But you got to be able to play defense. You can't have every game be 42 to 40. You can't do that. You can't have every single game come down to the wire like that. At some point, you're going to run out of steam. Yes, I know you have Ben Johnson and you have Jared Goff, and you're pulling out hook and ladders in regular season games that don't matter. I get it. But you don't have a defense that can make a key stop. You just don't. I know Kirby Joseph is going to set the interception mark for the season. He's got 9. I get it. You just don't have the guys up front to do it in the postseason 3 or 4 times. You just don't. I'm sorry. And there's a decent chance if they lose on Sunday, they're going to be a wild card team, which means they're going to have to go on the road. The record doesn't matter. And so if you have to go on the road with that defense, you got to have a defense that travels. And I just don't think the Lions do. And I think that's going to be their fault because offensively, they have 0. None. There's not a single flaw to their offense. Run the football, throw the football, great offensive mind. They're aggressive. They do everything right. Their defense is what's going to doom them in. We get inside to the top 5, the Baltimore Ravens. Is this Lamar's moment? They would be higher. They're playing good football. A lot of these teams have this cloud around them. I got to see it from Lamar, right? You win a playoff game this season with the way that you've played, and you go into Arrowhead, I'll start to get on board. I'll have to see it. But is this Lamar's moment? And until they cross that lexicon, until they cross that bridge, until they show me, they're not going to be in the top 5. Or in the top 4, excuse me. Inside the top 4, the Minnesota Vikings. This team is a real, legit threat. Their defense, one of the best defenses in the second half of the season. Sam Darnold, legit, should get more MVP consideration. They are not doing this with smoke and mirrors. They have a defense and an offense that can beat anybody in the NFC and beat anybody in the AFC. There is a reason they are playing for the division and the 1 seed on Sunday. Everyone's been all enamored with the Lions. I don't blame you. I'm guilty of it as well. But the Minnesota Vikings, don't sleep on them any further. They are a real, legit threat in the NFC playoff race. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. This is the best version of the Buffalo Bills. That's what puts them this high on this list. Yes, they would still have to go to Kansas City, but it is the best version of them, arguably on both sides of the ball, especially on offense with Josh Allen. The best version of this team in a really long time, potentially ever. Philadelphia Eagles, the best team in the NFC right now for me. Run game with Saquon Barkley, who's about to break Eric Dickerson's record. A good defense. Hopefully they get Jalen Hurts back. They are a dangerous team in the postseason. And for me, number 1, this is simple. It's the Chiefs. Until somebody dethrones them, until somebody takes them down, until somebody goes into Arrowhead, and Scott Van Pelt of ESPN refers to it as the Arrowhead Invitational, because that's what it's been for a really long time. When somebody goes and wins the Arrowhead Invitational and dethrones them in the AFC, until that happens, they're going to be the number 1 team. Because you know they're going to flip a switch and be a different team in the postseason. They're going to find something that they didn't have throughout the year. And oh, by the way, they've also won a bunch of close games, so they know how to handle that this season with their group. So until further notice, they are number 1. Producer Corey, I appreciate the lengthy runway there to get through all 17 teams. That list will shorten by 3. We will get down to 14 going into next week, and then maybe we'll reset the order here after we learn where these teams sit going into the postseason. But on the other side, we will wrap up this edition, the last edition of 2024 for the lunch break. We will do it with the leftovers. We'll do it next here, KDUS AM 1060. The final segment of 2024 here on the lunch break. We appreciate you joining us here. You want to get in, last call, 480-864-1060 is the phone number. Producer Corey, we had a conversation off air yesterday.
Yes.
About New Year's plans.
Mm-hmm.
Are you comfortable with us having that conversation on the air?
I'm fine.
Okay. So yesterday, Producer Corey was working the ASU women's basketball game. Big win over Penn yesterday, by the way. And we were discussing New Year's plans because we're both not here tomorrow. There is an ASU women's basketball game, but Producer Corey and I are not in the building. We are taking the day. And so I asked him, what's he doing tonight for New Year's? What's he doing tomorrow for New Year's? And you provided to me what I thought was an interesting thing that you're doing tonight. You're still on the fence about it.
Okay.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the fence yesterday about this.
Okay.
You're still on the fence as we sit here today.
Well, it got canceled.
Wait a minute. Folks, I did not know this. Producer Corey and I did not discuss this before we talked about it. Yesterday, you told me you were doing something.
Yes.
That when you described it to me, and you'll describe it to the listeners here in a second.
Of course.
I was in. I was like, I'd love to be there.
Yeah.
It sounds cool.
No, it was one of those classic get-together murder mystery ones where you dress up as characters and you try to find out who did it all throughout the party, and it was going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
But sadly, some folks got sick, so it's kind of canceled, but that's fine.
So now we got the bird flu going around.
Mm-hmm. We
got norovirus going around. That's all I see on social media and on the news right now. Bird flu and norovirus and COVID cases going up. That's what I see on the news. So I'm not surprised. I'm hearing about a lot of people getting the bug around this time of year.
Oh, yeah, it's winter.
It is disappointing, though, that because you were going to be doing the show on Thursday with me.
Yep.
And I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I was eagerly going to carve out some time for us on the Thursday edition of the show to break this down.
Oh, no.
To see if you could figure it out. But now I gotta come up with something new. So you were originally going to get together with friends and family.
Yes.
And you were going to do one of those. So you sometimes you go to a theater for these, and it's like the murder mystery dinners where
yes.
you have a dinner and you watch along while they do it's kind of like a Broadway show, and you try to figure out who did it.
Mm-hmm.
This was one that you kind of do yourselves. It's a game that you play in your house. I'm familiar with these. I've never done one, but I've seen them happen, and I've always been intrigued by them.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to see how it went. Disappointing to hear that it is not happening. Now,
still going to see the family, though. We're going to meet up at our own place.
So you're still doing your own thing.
Yeah.
I don't love staying up for New Year's. It's not necessarily one of my favorite things to do. But we're getting together with some friends. We're going to watch Penn State, Boise State. So that starts at around 5:30. So we're getting together for that, and we're going to hang out. And obviously my daughter's coming with me, and then there's a bunch of other kids that'll be there, and we'll have a bunch of families together. Now, I have a friend, a really good friend, who has a 4-year-old. She's about to be 5. And maybe he's listening. If he is, I don't feel, he talked about this on the podcast that he does, so I feel comfortable re-airing this. And I need to know if this is a party foul or not. He has a 4-year-old. She's about to be 5.
Got it.
And they're getting together with other families, similarly to what I'm doing tonight. Now, I can't get away with this because my daughter is 10 and she understands the concept of time. They are tricking their children with a fake ball drop at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., so that the kids go to bed early so that they don't have to stay up late. Now, there's part of me that respects this. There's part of me that respects this because I'd like to go to bed at a normal hour. I can't because my daughter is 10. She's going to be 11 next year. She understands the concept of time. She understands. She has a phone. She knows what time it is. I can't convince her to do it. And they're building a ball, and they're going to do this.
I have heard parents do that before.
They're doing this so that they can go to bed early.
Yeah.
I both respect it, and I also think, you're lying to your child. It's not really great. I don't love this.
I'm not really against the idea. I just wonder how you make it work when inevitably there's a bunch of fireworks at midnight. Because, either they go to sleep on time. Sure, they go to bed at, 6, 7, whatever. Regardless, at midnight, they're going to wake up.
Well, I know, but we've now entered this. They're 4 and 5. You've already lied to them once, so you might as well just continue to lie and say, there's people that are celebrating now. They're just waiting.
Yeah.
We celebrated earlier or whatever. And then the kids 4 or 5, they'll go right back to bed. Again, I can't do this. My daughter's 10. She will understand the concept of time. So I'm going to be up until 12:01 tonight.
Is there a hint of jealousy in that?
There is. I got to tell you, there is a hint of jealousy. I'm not going to be able to go to sleep at a normal time. Now, it would be different. I'd feel probably a little bit more strong about it if we were doing a show tomorrow, but we're off.
Yeah.
So if I go to bed at, 1, 2 in the morning, I don't need to be in the office tomorrow.
It is what it is.
So it is what it is. If I needed to be here tomorrow, there would be a long conversation in my house of listen, I get it's New Year's. I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock. I'm sorry. I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock. I'll watch the football game. I'll hang out, but I am hitting everybody with the Irish goodbye. I'm leaving. I'm going home. I'm going to sleep.
Maybe there'll be so many overtimes that it goes till midnight. The rare quadruple.
Let's hold on here. Let me do some math here because that game's starting at 5:30.
Okay, so let's see. Probably be done around like 9 or so.
Yeah, so 9:30. It's only about 4 hours, but it's a bowl game, so it might take a little bit longer. So let's say it ends around 10 o'clock. You want me to add another 2 hours? I do not think that is going to happen.
I mean, think of all the spots though.
Trust me, as two guys that work in radio and are dealing with spots on a regular basis, yeah, there are a lot of spots, a lot of commercials. So hopefully everybody has a safe New Year's, whatever you're doing. Ring in 2025, ring in the end of 2024. Have fun, but do it safely, please. We don't want to hear any bad stories. We want everybody to do things safely, but have fun in the process as we welcome in the new year tonight. We're back on Thursday. We're off tomorrow. Our first show of the year will be on Thursday, and we will have a bunch of football to react to, and we will get you set for the final week of the season. There'll be some more Suns for us to get into, but closing out this year, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everybody. We started the show in the middle of October. I started here at the station, taking over for everything here at 1060 in August. And there has been a lot of work that was put into getting this show off the ground. It's why we started it as late into the football season as we did, because I got here at the end of August as football season was starting. We had to do a lot of work to put all this together, and we've had a lot of fun since the middle of October doing this show, and we are very excited for what 2025 is going to have in store, and we are excited to have you a part of this journey, and we want you to be a part of this journey moving forward into 2025, as we have a lot of cool things up our sleeves that we will hopefully be able to talk to you about really, really soon. And we kind of started some of it with the video stuff that we've done. You've started to see a little bit of it with the social media content, and we are going to turn that up to 100 in 2025, and hopefully, and we would love to have you on board the journey. So just a quick thank you for everybody who has consumed this show, however you have consumed it in 2024. This has been super fun. It's been a great end to 2024 for us here at the station, and we are very, very excited for 2025. Very, very excited for what the future will hold. We've got football tonight, Fiesta Bowl, Penn State, Boise State. We got ASU tomorrow. There's some bowl games going on right now. Alabama and Michigan are playing a different leftovers than we normally do, but figured that would be the way, a nice way to end 2024. Producer Corey, thank you for all that you do, pushing all the buttons back there, making sure that we stay on schedule, even when I want to take us off schedule. I appreciate it. We've got Doug Gottlieb up next. Then you got Rich Eisen. No Rooster tonight. We are back on Thursday. Everybody, a safe New Year's Eve. We will talk to you. I'll make the dad joke in 2025. See you, everybody.